The microphone is now working. My name's Jeff Khan. I'm the Artistic Director of Aotearoa, the Asia Pacific Triennial of Performing Arts in Melbourne in Australia. My job here is to buy a little bit of time as the dancers come out of this opening state, but Aotearoa is the lead commissioner for this work that we're about to see a few fragments of, United by Chunky Move. I'd like to acknowledge Chrissy Eyre, who's the Executive Director of Chunky Move, and my colleague Faith Tan, where are you, Faith, from the Esplanade in Singapore, who are a co-commissioner of this work with Aotearoa. The Aotearoa Triennial will happen in February, March next year, which will also be the world premiere of United. It's our really great pleasure to be a commissioner of this work, which is a really sort of landmark work for Chunky Move and for Antony Hamilton, the artistic director. When we think about curating an Asia Pacific Triennial from an Australian perspective, as an artistic director, I'm very clear that sort of our priorities with working with Australian artists, we commission artists from all over the region. But when it comes to working with Australian artists, our priorities are really working with First Nations artists from Australia, working with Australian artists from the Asia Pacific diaspora. We have a big cultural heritage in the region, but also artists from any cultural background who are initiating and developing artist-to-artist connections across the region, across art forms and artistic practices and cultures. And this is how this work has come to land in Aotearoa through this very interesting collaboration and this seed of an idea that was developed by Antony in collaboration with Gabber Modus Operandi, who are an Indonesian musicians, electronic musicians. And Antony will tell us about that collaboration that really fuels the foundations of this work, as well as sharing elements of the work with you today, both live and on video. So please join me in welcoming Antony Hamilton.
Thank you. Thanks so much for that generous introduction, and thank you, Faith. It's lovely to see you, and so wonderful to have such great supporters of this work. It is an immense privilege to be in the Aotearoa Festival as well, and to be sort of given that platform actually to tell a story and to bring a language that is deeply collaborative, and it does involve a number of very critical voices and important artistic voices through the process, which I'll talk to you a little bit today. We're going to show you some fragments, as Jeff mentioned. Also, I'd just like to very much thank River and the Adam Kitchen and team and TPAC for hosting us also. It's been such a fantastic week, watching and hearing from everybody who's been presenting and hearing the rich dialogue, that has occurred, and it's actually sparked many things for me, which is, what these are for, right? It's very, very valuable, so thank you. A little bit of background before we dive into some more things. My choreographic practice stems back probably 15 years, nearly 20 years, and really what grounds my artistic practice is kind of a collapse of forms in a way. I'm trying to keep this away from me because it's really hot, this mic. As in it's like, I'm trying to keep my voice good. A choreographic practice that is really about sort of collapsing forms very much. It's very grounded in a sort of perception and a philosophical point of view, which is that our world is grounded in symbols, and that symbolism is actually the way we read the world and the way we make sense of the world. And I'm interested in symbolism in relation to objective reality, if there is such a thing, but I'm really very, very interested in how we use symbols and how they are actually sort of spread, globally in different ways, that there are certain sort of commonalities and common languages and common sort of threads story as well. And choreographically, collaboration is also extremely important to me. I work with collaborators to really fuse disciplines as well. So we don't really recognise a discipline anymore. It's actually gone, and we're just working in a ideally a new form that is a little bit beyond language as well, which is why it's hard to actually place it into words, because also, again, symbolism of words, they ground things in a certain way. It's why I love choreography and dance, because we get to escape language for a little while and actually read and experience things through a different paradigm. A little bit about the relationship with Gabber Modus Operandi. So we had a very kind of naturally occurring relationship that built in our native environment of the internet. So, you know, just like many people do, you discover artists through social media perhaps, send a few likes, send a few hearts, love what you're doing, this kind of thing. And this was actually the genesis of how we discovered each other. And then when we met, you know, we talked about a project, we invited them into a project with us, and we wanted to meet and do some research and discover what might be a common language and a shared interest. So in terms of that shared interest, what we kind of found was, I'll try and zero in on it. We sort of found this sense of machine mysticism. So the idea that there's a sort of, you know, the persistence of a spirituality that is global in the post-industrial era, post-technological era, post-human era. Somehow spirituality persists, it stays with us, and it stays within materiality of things. Gabber Modus Operandi's practice interrogates great timescales in terms of their performance. They perform in clubs. They're very informed by Jathilan trance practices from Indonesia and the trance practices of rave culture through the historical lens of raves from the Rotterdam techno scene, Gabber techno scene from the 90s, and trance being part of that language. And of course, you know, there's the complicated, you know, historical colonial, you know, relationship of the Netherlands to Indonesia as well, that they are sort of also, you know, I think, you know, working with and dealing with and looking at. And Hasselman himself is like an amazing music historian. Learned a lot from him about that history. And then for me, I'm interested in the sort of where the body ends and where it meets the environment. And I'm also interested in when we talk about technology, like there's the long stretch of time of technology. And when we think about what that might mean, I'm interested in tools and materials and its relationship to actual consciousness and self-awareness. Because I see the idea of consciousness and self-awareness, when it may have emerged or switched on in deep, deep history, it was in making our environment a utility, or being aware that the environment is of a utility, of a service to us. And so the first technology might have been a path being cut through long grass, and walking through long grass, and then that long grass getting flatter and flatter over time, and all of a sudden it's an environmental condition in service to humans, and therefore a kind of technology. And then with that, there's also, once we start to render things physically, they're all tools. And I want you to think about maybe how you're perceiving this room, the city, the environment that we're in, as a sacred art object. And every element of the environment that is made by hand of human beings is in some way a sacred art object. Because of this connection to self-awareness and consciousness moving into the environment and producing things. So this is the interest. I will stop talking because I do want to show you some more things. So, you know, we had a really rich and robust conversation with GMO, and I'll just quickly show you a little video of our time in Bali. music running underneath the actual audio. To talk a little bit about the video there, that was an exchange period in which we wanted to sort of, discover like our common language that we were going to investigate, find those common threads. And it was amazing how quickly they came. They were actually already there, like very, very much on the surface. So not a lot of, difficulty or deep digging to try and find it. It was sort of already in our practice, which was really lovely. So we're going to show you something else. Yeah, we are. Yeah. So I'm going to keep talking next about another one of our collaborative partners. So while I'm being dressed like Mel and Samakshi, the wonderful dancers, thank you. So for this project, we're also working with a company from Naarm, Melbourne, called Creature Technology Co. They're well known internationally for arena spectaculars like King Kong, Walking with Dinosaurs. They work for Universal Studios doing these really big animatronic, machines and robots and stuff like that, and animals. And this is a really small project for them. It's tiny. It's like a hobby project for them, which is lovely because they're local, for us, and we've had a good relationship working with them on other projects in the past. For this project, we wanted to explore a very particular modality and mobility in the body that would mimic human movement somehow, or mimic animal movement, let's say, with articulated joints. We'd worked with them on another project where there were much more large-scale, cumbersome costumes, very big and bulky, where the body was very hidden inside us and sort of in service to a larger machine. We wanted to do something that was a little closer to the body, that sort of made it a little more difficult to differentiate, muddied the waters a little bit between the body and the environment around it. So we're going to show you a little thing, and I'm going to keep talking without the microphone, because I have to, because I want to talk as we're showing you some stuff. We sort of been inspired by also, the idea of costume in many, many traditions being representative of natural phenomena, and costume being a way to transform the self and actually take yourself out of yourself. And so costume, still very much performs this function for us as performers. We become something other, and we're very interested also in the way that three bodies can become one, and the way that multiple bodies can be in service to a single form. And we talked a little about, again, like cultural phenomenon of this occurring in different parts of the world. And a couple of maybe reference points would be the Balinese Barong, which is the hero of the mythology where there's the evil Ranga witch. And the Barong is a number of people dressed together so it becomes one form. Another reference that I found really interesting was talking about the utility of machines, the monster truck. It is also a mythological creature, and it's taking an existing form that literally begins to breathe and make and roar. So a truck, its motion becoming a living being. So we can talk about the thematic interests, but it's also interesting talking about the technical realization of making something like this, and what kind of uses do you want it to have? Because we had to choose how it could be modular, so it could become many, many different things. So you can see we're using industrial fittings that are very much just off the shelf. There's not a lot of custom parts here. These are actually motorcycle armor, and there's only one 3D printed part. The rest of it is hardware. And so using things already from the world that we live in and reimagining them, repurposing them. Yeah. Okay. Another little video? I think it's video time again. Okay. Here. Quick slideshow. I was going to run this slideshow, but this was the studio development that we came together after the Bali research period. Cass and Ooschon and Manda, who is doing costumes, Studio Masan. You may know Future Laundry. They're working with us on costume, which also has to integrate with these exoskeletons. But they were here in Melbourne with us. You can see now with more dancers as well, the volume of the body becomes greater, and the muddiness between parts becomes greater. Things are harder to understand, more complicated by volume. So the volume, the physical volume complicates things. So I think maybe this is the video. Yes, thank you. So just to talk very briefly about that video before we move on, you can see that we work with a truss spine that runs down the middle of the space. Two things to say. One is that it's part of an extension of this idea of the body meeting its environment. So creating the conditions for the body to be more connected to the space around it. And also within that, creating an environment, a little bit like a playground, where it produces different kinds of choreographic possibilities. So often what we'll do is we'll develop a world. That's my process, is to develop the world first, then populate it with people or creatures. And that's the way to find, one way to find a new choreographic language. Now we're going to do a little dance, aren't we? Yeah. Just to see a little bit of that choreography, maybe to talk a little bit about, no, let's just do the choreography, just to have a nice thing. Yeah. Maybe another thing just to say about the choreographic method as well. It's a personal interest and a bit of an obsession of mine is rhythmic complexity, quite difficult rhythms, and that somehow we can visualize a polyrhythm. We don't hear the beats that they're landing on, but we definitely see them. So there's an interesting tension between the visualization of a rhythm and the hearing of a different rhythm, and how you actually manage that also as a performer. And then, to think about, I think, Cass's influence also of like Indonesian gamelan as well has that rhythmic complexity as well. And there's a bit of a meeting place there as well. I actually, as a hobby, play in a Balinese gamelan ensemble in Melbourne as well. So I play gamelan for 6 years myself on multiple instruments. So my interest in like drum and rhythm also infuses into the choreography that I make as well. So lots of nice connections, that are very natural and feel good. Then maybe next is another video. Maybe is it the video next, and then you guys can. Yeah, we'll do one more video. So the reason to show you this next video is 3 minutes long. It's a little longer than the other ones, but it's to show a few more variations with 6 dancers connected to this truss and the carriage. So you see again more iterations of how the choreography is like manipulated and modulated by this other form. Oh no, you can see all this stuff. That's not good. It's okay, we'll do it. maybe I'll just mention very quickly as well that it may or may not be particularly apparent, but there's an influence of street dance in the work. Two of the dancers in particular, I'll just mention Jahra Wasasala and Ooschon. They form a collective known as Conjure. They're interested in a lot of different practices actually, but they also come from street dance heritage from Aotearoa, New Zealand, with Fijian and Samoan heritage as well. And the thing about their practice is it is absolutely grounded in street practice. So, you know, and freestyle actually as well, where there are like, there are languages that are like, there are moves of course, but there's like, freestyling on a language. And I'm making them do all this choreography. They hate me for it. They hate me for it, No, they don't mind really. We're having a good time together. But it's like, it's a different practice. It's like a totally different practice. Choreography, learning steps, long sequences of choreography, it's a totally different practice. And none is less rigorous than the other, right? But it's different. And so like there's a lot of exchange and a lot of learning going on in the studio. And I just have to say I've learned so much from all of the dancers, right? As well. And I like this like exchange of knowledge over generations too. To be a student forever, like, why not? Like it's, we don't have all the answers. Less as you get older, right? More doubt comes creeping in. Okay, we're going to do the second one? Yeah, okay, so a little bit of this choreography. It's interesting because this is usually with 6 people. You have 2 movement phrases that intersect, so they have a kind of interlocking quality, but you get to see it without the interlocking, so you get to see the clarity. So let's have a look at that. Try and find that little chunk of music, you guys. So just very, very quickly, it's good to understand the methodology actually behind these kinds of choreographies too. And I spoke about like rhythmic complexity and how that's arrived at. I've had a practice of working with a method where I use random lists of numbers, and each number is assigned to a movement. And so that's the duration of the movement. So they're going to demonstrate for you, you're going to hear how they count, how they manage to be so accurate actually with such short and long movements. Here we go?
Yeah.
This thing? No, that's yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
That's enough. That's good. That's enough. There's more. There's a little bit more. There's a tiny bit more. Very tiny bit. The very last thing we're going to show you is just a bit of lighting, just so you see what the show is going to actually look like. Because actually, it's quite important. You know, I didn't talk so much about the context of the work in how it's going to look. You know, but it's sort of exploring, you know, like also this connection to club culture as well, and creating events and spectacles that are a little bit more than just, you know, they're not just grounded in the stage and theatre. They're, you know, so you can see the truss with the arm on it now. It's a little bit more kind of post-industrial, cyberpunk kind of vibes. So that's that. And just a very final thing, this is a bit weird, but I'm going to show you like this little trailer that we made. It's glossy, it's slick, right? And I know that this process is not necessarily about doing and showing you those things, but it's important for me to kind of tell you that when we make marketing material, I don't treat it any differently to the artwork, right? It's an important creative element for me because it anchors things in a way. It tells us what we need to arrive at. And we make this thing that becomes like a bit of a kind of, yeah, like a place to go to. So here's a quick little trailer. Oh wait up. Sorry. Quit you. Jump back into you. Give you a little bit of volume. Yeah. Here we go. The amazing David Prakash joining Pham in the video. Another street dancer, crump and freestyle hip hop. What other styles? Any other styles? David's rocking. Doesn't remember? That's it, probably. Anyway, okay, so I think that's it for my presentation. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Antony, and Samakshi. Give them a round of applause. That was an incredibly rich and dense sharing of material, and it's probably fair to say that this work is about halfway through creative development. There's about another 5 or 6 weeks before going into the premiere at Aotearoa. We're very aware of limited time, so might throw straight to see if there's any questions from the audience for Antony or the artists. Really? It's a lot, I know, it's a lot to process.
I mean, one of the things I think that really keeps recurring to me about this work is the time scale that both you and Gabber Modus Operandi are interested, where there's this kind of collapse of the far future into the ancient past, and this persistence of ritual, spiritual in the machine, and this kind of acknowledgement in that we, in the present, we're actually living multiple temporalities in our bodies all the time. And I'm just wondering perhaps if you could speak a little bit more to that sense of the time scale, which is the meeting point really for you and GMO.
I mean, I guess we're kind of fixated in the present, but I think GMO and myself particularly see strong connections between the perpetuation of the same kinds of experiences of very, very ancient DNA and biology, that we still have today, and that. There's a certain ancientness to our bodies, in the present. So we bring that with us. And then for me, it's particularly about something I mentioned earlier about tools and the utility of the world, and that that's sort of I see a really strong relationship to first weapons like flints and stone tools. And the buildings around us. I'm interested in trying to narrow that space and not see such a vast distinction and gap between times, because I think our relationship to those materials is still very, very similar. But we think somehow we don't think so. So it's something about that, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, just as you were saying that, I was thinking what's interesting to me also is this sense of this multiple temporalities and timescales in connection to this crazy counting system that we just witnessed, and this sense of time as embodied by the dancers, actually. And I'm wondering then what we have layering over the top of it are these incredibly complex rhythms of GMO, and I'm interested in this collision between your counting system and your system of choreography in time and the beats and rhythms that GMO are creating for the work.
Yeah. There's a super interesting paradox in the rhythmic complexity and speed that is associated with a meditative state, actually. It's like you need to go fast and deep into complexity in order to reach a sense of trance. So you actually become meditative through this, and I've performed this kind of work myself as well. There's been works where counting systems like that have been the anchor and the complete part of the work, and the depth of sort of connection to that, where everything disappears. There's no possibility to be in the room or in the space. So yeah, that's an interesting thing that I think also GMO share, which is very related, of course, to rave culture and techno, because it is that same kind of depth of immersion into long experiences that take over your body.
Yeah, I think that extended sense of time where we engage in nightlife culture and clubbing, in raves, in trance, it's about sort of, that's a sort of sensation that you, in a way, draw out of that experience into the kind of choreographic sensibility of this work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions now? Yes, there is a question.
Thank you very much. I actually have 1,000 thoughts, but my first question is, I was wondering if, from an extended cognitive perspective, which is also kind of my obsession as well, with working with the utility of the tool and your body with it, did you ever have a feeling after spending so much time with it that it almost felt like a phantom limb, that you were missing it when it wasn't there, if we can kind of consider it becomes part of us and an extension of us?
Yeah. No, the answer is no, and it's just because the duration of time that we're working with it is not really long enough. I mean, I can place myself in my car at home easily because I spend a lot of time in it, so I remember the echo of that in my back, in my arms, in my posture, and so that phantom, the phantom car is with me, the phantom front door of my house is with me, and the map of my house and the map of the city that I live in is with me, and so that technology does echo. Yeah. But I think these, we don't spend enough time with them, I think, and they're too new. But maybe if we lived with them all the time, they probably would, you know. But something interesting does happen. It's a little bit like weight aerobics as well, where like, you know, you get a certain fitness from the heavy weight of these objects, and then when they come off, it's like, you're like, whoa, you got all this like range, and it's very limber. Yeah. True.
Any other questions? Yes.
Have you considered adding more joints to your robots? Because for now, it moves like a chicken wing.
Yeah.
The human arms are more free.
Yeah.
So why do you need a restriction like that?
Well, we need Boston Dynamics to work with us, you know, because there are certain, because it is still theatre, you know, and my interest actually it goes back to the question about costume. Costume is symbolic, and it represents something, and it helps represent, and it helps place us somewhere. It helps us guide us into imagination. And we don't need the real thing, actually. And people actually, because sometimes I talk about technology, and you know, people say, "Are you really interested in technology in your work?" Kind of. I'm more interested in what technology means. I'm not interested in really how it works. I'm more interested in what it represents and what the symbolism of it is in our lives, and why it's so powerful in that way. But yeah, I mean, it gives, certainly there's also a technical possibility that is allowed by the more things you can do. But also, one thing we discovered very quickly is it's already really hard to find interesting things to do, because all of a sudden your body is not your body anymore. You get a great dancer who's like the best around, you know, they can do everything, like, yeah, like I'm feeling really good, and then now try with wearing this, and it's like all of a sudden all those skills are gone. You know, so even with the limitation that's here, it's quite a constraint on the choreography, and it's quite a constraint on their ability to you know, and my ability to find, you know, language that feels good in our bodies.
Any final questions? Yes.
If I can, I want to ask the performers, because I understand this work is an extension of the body, but also it looks like a manipulation on the body of yourself. So, what do you feel during this work? So, something strange or something different from other type of dance practice?
I feel like it's quite restricting, like what Antony was saying. It's quite restricting on the body, but I also think because it's quite restricting, you're forced to find new ways of moving. And it's I think the most challenging thing I've done in terms of how frustrating and restricting it is. And I feel like there's times when we spend like 30, 40 minutes in these suits, and not just one arm or one leg. We have two shoulder pads, the motorbike suit, and like two arms. And it's really heavy, but it's also, you're doing all kinds of movements. You're doing sharp movements, you're doing big movements, and it gets, I've felt really angry at some points. I'm like, I just want to get it off. And it's not fun to be in, but it's also just really challenging. I don't feel like, similarly to what Antony was saying, I don't think we spend enough time in it for it to be as embodied as I would like it to be. Yeah.
It's exciting to think that there's so much more to pull out of it, actually, and that there's, you know, 5 more weeks of choreographic development in the studio to sort of draw out some of that nuance. I think we've pretty much run out of time, but really we will all be around for the next couple of days, so please feel free to approach Antony, Samakshi and Mel, ask them more questions about the work, ask myself, Christy or Faith. We're very happy, we're very excited to be talking about this project and to be moving towards its premiere next year. So we invite you warmly to come to Aotearoa in February, March next year. We haven't released our dates yet, but it might be around the 26th of February. And please join me in thanking Antony and the dancers.